Welcome to Florida's Wealthy Divorces, Complex Cases, Expert Advice.
Welcome back to Florida's Wealthy Divorces. I'm your host, Stacey Beaulieu-Fawcett, Florida divorce attorney, and your guide through the wild world of high net worth breakups. If you missed part one with Gianni Adamo, pause this and go back because we talked about love trauma, narcissistic abuse, and how those patterns show up in marriages. Today, though, we're talking about what happens next. How do you heal? How do you rebuild? And how do you even think again about dating and not repeating the same nightmare? Gianni is a licensed mental health counselor, trauma-informed relationship expert, and best-selling author. She's the founder of Fearless Love Counseling and Coaching, and she helps people going from surviving to thriving in love and relationships. Welcome back, Gianni.
Thank you so much, Stacey. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yes. So glad to have you. Part two. So let's kind of pick up where we left off. For the listener who has finally filed for divorce or just got a judgment in their divorce, maybe it's done. What does day one of healing realistically look like?
That's a really good question, what day one looks like. I would hope that you have been through this journey of getting divorced with support. So I wouldn't want their day one to begin the day that their verdict of divorce has been achieved. It should hopefully, if you're still in the separation phase or just, trying to figure out whether or not you should divorce, I would suggest getting involved either with a grief group through your own church or house of worship. There's plenty of those around, with a therapist. There's coaches out there as well that deal with grief. So that would be the first part that I would be suggesting, that don't wait till the day of your divorce to seek support or counseling. Start that as soon as possible, especially if you have been in a mentally and emotionally abusive relationship, because that's what happens if you have been involved or are involved with a narcissist. However, once the divorce is completed, I'm hoping that at this point, you're elevating self-love to the forefront if you haven't already done so. And it's interesting because that is a new term that we've been using probably in the last 15 years, more than ever. And that's because we have had so much divorces and so much breakups of families and all this stuff. So for me, it would be, you've got to prioritize you. You've got to choose your mental health, your peace of mind, your physical health. If you don't take care of yourself, then you're not able to take care of the children or
Absolutely.
your own, or anything else that's your responsibility. You're going to be, in a kind of a mess, and you don't need to be in a state of a mess. And you can actually go through this with dignity. You can go through this with knowing that you're going to be better and happier and healthier on the other side of this divorce.
Good. That's such good advice, really. And what comes to mind is, put your mask on first, and then, and it's true. It's true for everything. I wonder though if, in some scenarios, people take not necessarily the self-care and self-love to the extreme, but I see a push for people to bounce back fast, go get the new car, go get the new wardrobe, new relationship, new Instagram life. And, what are some common mistakes that you see people making in those first 6 to 12 months after experiencing this breakup?
I don't know if I would say, spending more money, because if you have the money, fine, that's part of your, your therapy, shopping therapy. You could afford it. If you're getting yourself into debt, now that's a problem. Do not do that. I'm like, don't get yourself into debt. That would be an issue. The other issue would be sleeping with every Tom, Dick, and Harry that's out there, because a lot of people do, because they've been faithful. And then they go and they think that they're going to go try everything that's out there. And there's a lot of diseases and illnesses and predators, as I ended up with one out there. So like, either getting yourself into debt would be a huge problem. Going into alcohol or drugs would be another huge problem, or using sex as your grief therapy. That's not grief therapy. You don't go sleeping around with people. That's very dangerous. And then the problem too is you invite these people into your homes, and a whole bunch of them are just looking to steal anything they can possibly steal: your heart, your money, your
Mhm.
car, whatever, they'll take it. So there's a lot of very dangerous people out there. And if you've been married long term, you don't realize that. You think
Mhm.
everybody's still like, yeah, like you, very, loving and huge heart. And we don't have always those types of characters out there.
Right, right. So I'm sure you hit the nail on the head with some listeners there that are saying, "Yeah, I'm doing that." What it's reality, and we see it all the time. But what are some other healthier ways to channel that energy in those early stages? It's never too late to get it back on track.
Hobbies. I would start with getting
Sure.
yourself into hobbies. I
Yes,
learned ballroom dancing. I went into like all the Latins. So I danced salsa, bachata, cha-cha-cha, merengue, the Argentine tango.
love it.
Yeah. The book that I wrote, the Amazon bestseller, that's From Love Trauma to Fearless Love, uses the Argentine tango as lessons in love between the feminine and the masculine to help someone who has gone through, betrayal and all this traumatic experience in the love department to come back to what is love. So I actually used that hobby and I married it to my profession and ended up with an Amazon bestseller. So you can make lemonade out of your lemon. So hobbies would be my number one pick.
Love it.
Figuring out, yeah, like, or maybe trying a different things until you figure out like this is a great hobby that makes me feel great and wonderful about myself.
That is such good advice. The hobbies,
Hmm.
sometimes it's not rocket science. It's like stuff that you know is there, but until someone brings it back to the forefront of your mind and you say it, you just
Hmm.
don't think about it. It's
Yep.
it's true. It's true.
The
So,
other thing is coming back to your health. If you
mhm,
have to go to the gym or walk
yeah,
or bike or do yoga, before before anything, your physical health will help dictate some of your mental health. So
right.
if you're not healthy physically, you've got to take that under control. That has to become your number one
Mhm.
priority. Then your mental health becomes your
Yes.
second, but
Yes.
physical health, major priority.
Yes, so true. And it's interesting. Physical first, mental second. And at first that's like, what? But it makes total sense
Yeah.
because yeah, yeah. And so
Well,
many people do. They go back to exercising.
mhm.
And I encourage it, and they're, oh, I just started working with my personal trainer again. And those are the people are on the right track. But yes, your
With
physical.
the physical health, something that people forget is what underlines your physical health. Number one thing is your sleep,
Yeah,
sleeping. So
yeah,
not being up on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or just scrolling. That's not going to help you in the middle of the night.
yeah.
Getting your quality night's rest will. So if you need to take some herbs to help you to sleep, because I know when you're going through trauma, sleep gets taken from you. So I understand that firsthand. I'm like,
Mm,
I've had to be the queen of figuring out the teas to take before bed, the herbs and all
mhm,
that stuff.
mhm.
Stabilizing your sleep, making sure you're getting enough exercise and sunshine here in Florida. For those of us who are living here, we get
Yeah,
plenty of sunshine. So come outside, play pickleball, go play golf, learn how to play these things if you don't know how to do them, and
yeah.
get the sunshine that you need. That's going to help you dramatically.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting too because so many of those things will put you in social situations, which getting out and talking to other people also ties good to the mental health. And so, yes, I can see where just those two things can be life changing for people. True.
Exactly. And you're right. Because create the other thing that a lot of times, at least for those of us who got married a while back, like me, sorry, divorced a while back, we didn't like, and this, the listener to this program is probably in this phase, which they don't understand. They're probably going to lose a lot of their friends, and that no one really tells you that until you go through a divorce. And the reason why is most of the friendships are loyal to the relationship. So if you had only couples as friends, those couples don't know what to do with the two of you once you go through a divorce. So many times you end up losing a whole bunch of your friends because they don't know what to say, they don't know what to do. Unless a lot of your friends already have been through divorce and this is their second or third marriages, and they know how to flow through that easier.
Right.
But a lot of times, if like for me, the majority of my friends to this day are still in their first marriage. They're not divorced people, especially the ones from New Jersey. They're all like intact marriages. They are
Hmm.
still a nuclear family. We have a much higher divorce rate here in Florida than we do up in the Northeast. So we kind of lead. Down here, we have a ton of divorces.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so the people who have already been through divorce, they're easier to figure out how to move forward with you. But for those who have never, and they just don't know what to do. So when you go through that divorce and you start realizing I'm losing my best friends, no one's responding to the level that I thought they were going to respond, they're not reaching out. This is why it's important to go out and get those hobbies. Why? You are now putting yourself in the proximity of new friends that can develop. Very, very important because you will need to gather new friends. And the good news too is you will have some of your acquaintances who had been in the periphery who have been through divorce, and they're going to jump right in to support you. And that was very shocking to me to see women who I barely ever spoke to, but they were in my periphery. They jumped in, and I felt so loved and cared for by them that we became much better friends. But the ones that I had originally depended on prior to the
Mhm.
divorce, they were all gone. They barely responded.
Yeah.
And so you go through like a heartbreak with your divorce, and then you go through a heartbreak of losing friends. This is the
Yeah.
stuff that nobody tells you, but I'm letting you know how you survive that as well. You've
Right.
got to be
It's
aware of this.
Yeah, and it's not just the friends. I tell people all the time, it is a loss of not just the friends, but you may have been very close to your in-laws. And that may have been your mother-in-law may have been like a mom to you. Your father-in-law may have been like a father to you. Your sister-in-law, brother-in-law may have been like siblings, and you lose all of that family. And there are exceptions. It's not always, but
And
it is.
that actually becomes a bigger heartbreak because that was a bigger heartbreak for me losing my in-laws
Mm,
because I was a really dedicated wife. I really took care of my responsibilities. I really did everything that I could to make my husband a better man. And I can cry. Even now, 15 years after that divorce, the biggest pain was when I went through and I lost the love and the support of my in-laws.
yeah.
That hurt me so bad that even though we were separated, I was in so much pain. I had to ask my soon to be ex, because we were still friends, to
Mm.
like, I had to sleep with him and have him like spoon me because I had so much pain in my heart. But
Aw.
the pain that the in laws did not treat me well after I announced that we were going to get divorced, that was so painful. But the good news is, on the other side, after years of all of this, we were fine and they accepted me again. And not that we hang out with one another, but that whole phase ended and we reconciled, like his family and I. But that was the most painful thing. Why? Because I thought they were going to try to be understanding, being that I had supported their son so well, and did such an amazing job with him. Like he became such a bigger, better man when he had me in his life. And
Mm.
instead of like and they knew that, and instead of like appreciating that,
Right.
they saw it as me betraying them and him for wanting to leave. It was like a whole big mess. So anyway, so bottom line is that was a huge pain because with my ex, soon to be ex, I knew that we were going to move on. So we had already worked through all those things, but
Right.
it had not been worked out with them. So
Mm.
it was like more of a shock to them that we had decided to move on.
Wow. Wow. It's very, very common. I try to prepare people for that because it is.
And
It is.
yeah, it's really hard because that's like your family, and now they've turned against you when they should have stayed supporting and loving. Because we, at least in my relationship, we
Right.
tried for years. We went to therapy and we did whatever we could.
Yeah. Yeah. So, what about this? Dating again without repeating the trauma. I have so many people come to me and they will say, I was in this type of relationship before and it ended. I don't know how I ended up in this type of abusive relationship again. So this is a problem. How how do we get to where that doesn't happen? How do we avoid that?
So, as you already heard, I went through a divorce and I ended up with someone even worse than the man that I had divorced. So how do we circumvent that? Again, you got to get into therapy. You got to deal with your trauma. You got to go through some healing, and you've got to understand the red flags. And if you're dating here in South Florida, it is really difficult. We do have a high narcissistic population here. They have very high narcissistic traits here. Very materialistic, very self-centered. It's all about their gain, their happiness, their comfort, it's about them. So if you're dating down here, you just have to really understand. And that's not just here because it's in New York, it's in other places, it's all over the place. You've got to understand the red flags. So you've got to understand when someone is being manipulative, when someone is being controlling, and you don't create excuses for them. You just see the facts. And if this is part of a red flag, you move on. You do not continue to date people that have red flags. If they got anger management problems, anger issues, you move on. Like for me, if they're criminals, I'm moving on. And these women will still date some of these guys who are criminals. And I'm like, what are they expecting? So yes, they got to do a background check. Unfortunately, we have to do that, especially if you're high net worth. You do background checks. You do not go out with people without a background check. So you hire these apps. There's apps that you can just pay monthly fees, which are not expensive at all, and they'll do the background check once you put in the information. In addition to doing background checks, getting your own healing, and not just throwing your heart away to the next person, you want to treat everyone with respect, but you don't want to be trusting anyone. Trust is earned. It is not granted. Respect is granted, but trust is earned. You must let them win your trust because their words and their behaviors need to line up. If their words and behaviors don't line up, there's a lack of integrity, and this is not a trustworthy human being. You want to attract a trustworthy human being to create a trustworthy and happy and healthy relationship. So there's a few things there that need to happen. And then I think my last piece on making sure that you're not repeating the same cycle again is, because I've seen this all the time with clients, they divorce the true blue narcissist and they go with the borderline next. And then they marry the borderline and then they divorce the borderline. Yeah, the borderline can love, but they're still toxic.
Yes.
They still need to go through healing and growing, and it's all victim. They're very victim mentality. So here, what I would say is you've got to become responsible. That means you know who you are, you know what you want, and you've got to become responsible to yourself. No more putting everybody else ahead of you, especially I'm talking to the ladies because that's usually what we do. We put everybody else ahead of us and we keep giving them so many chances. But becoming responsible says, I know who I am. I know what I want. And I live from a place of abundance that says there's plenty of fish in the sea and the right man or the right woman is out there for me. And I'm not compromising. It seems like we keep giving people all these opportunities to prove us wrong. And we're seeing the signs and we still continue to give them more chances.
Yes.
Stop that. There's no need for that. There's plenty of fish in the sea. The person never asked you a single question about you, what your interests are, what you're looking for in a relationship. The first date, gravitated solely on the other person about what they need, what they want. They don't care to ask you anything. There's a problem with that. There's no reciprocity. There's no mutuality. You might be getting more of that in the future. So that's a mental note. Energetically, for me, I need to feel the energy when I'm in a date. If there's energy coming to me or towards me as much as, they're asking of me, I want some sort of balance. I want that there's an interest and offering me care, support, respect. Like I want to know that there's a balancing act of the energies, or at least that they have an interest in me, not just it's all about them and me, supporting them. So there's a few things that need to happen, but you got to become responsible to yourself and who you are and what you want. Be clear of what your non-negotiables are. And be clear in what kind of relationship you want to build. And it starts with a trustworthy person, because a narcissist is not trustworthy.
Right.
Not at all.
Right. Such good information. And we are once again out of time. I don't know how it goes by so fast. Do you have anything that you want to leave our listeners with as we close out today, Gianni?
Yes, there is life after divorce, and there's definitely life after trauma, and all those things get healed. By the way, your brain is we are wired to move into homeostasis and be happy and healthy. So we can, with the right support, get through the other side of the storm. This is just a storm, and at the end of the day, this storm gives us depth, breadth, wisdom, grace. If you just navigate through it and know that there is a silver lining on the other side, and life is so much healthier and better when you can actually live in a place that you can be in control of who you are versus somebody else controlling you. You could find more joy, you can find more happiness, and you don't need to be stuck in a toxic relationship. And there's nothing wrong with you to putting yourself first, your mental health, your wellness first, your family, even if it does not include a person in that family, your partner. All of that can still function at a very high rate without this individual, if this individual is not healthy for you or your family.
Great advice. Great advice. For listeners who want to go deeper with you, where can they find you and your work?
I am found at fearlesslove.net. And I'm Gianni Adamo, and I am licensed in both New Jersey as well as Florida. But I also work with clients across the country or the world as a leadership coach and relationship coach.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Gianni, for being here and for the work that you do. To everyone listening, if any part of this conversation felt uncomfortably familiar, please hear this. You are not crazy. You are not broken. You are not doomed to repeat the same story. We will put links to Gianni's book, From Love Trauma to Fearless Love, and to Fearless Love Counseling and Coaching in the show notes, along with a link to my firm if you're considering a divorce here in Florida and want to talk about your specific situation. If this episode helped you, share it with a friend, follow the show, and leave a quick rating or review. It really does help to help other people find this kind of information. Thanks for listening to Florida Wealthy Divorces. I'll see you in the next episode.
Thank you, Stacy.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.